Did you know what made Ted Bundy's trial stranger than the case itself? Not the accusations, not the witnesses, but the way he controlled every moment as if it were his own live show. He represented himself not because he lacked a lawyer, but because no one else could tell the Ted Bundy story the way he wanted it told. He cut off the prosecutor like a host cutting the music. He questioned witnesses like he was running a podcast. And he proposed marriage right there in the courtroom, in front of national cameras. You might think, was that just emotional manipulation? Maybe. But deeper down, that's the behavior of someone who refuses to be hidden from the spotlight. And today, we're peeling back that behavior, not to debate guilt or innocence, but to understand what makes a person, in that situation, still value image over survival. Normally, people go to court to prove they're innocent. But Ted Bundy went to court to prove he was exceptional. Let's review what he did. He wrote, directed, and defended his own story. He smiled at the camera every time they zoomed in. He proposed marriage mid-trial, with a calmness like it was the climax of a legal romance movie. Who stares down the harshest sentence possible? And still finds time to play the charming lead inside a courtroom? Not because he thought he would win, not because he believed in the justice system, but because he couldn't let someone else rewrite his story. In psychology, this behavior is called self-narrative control, the need to control how your story is told, especially common in those with high narcissistic traits. According to research by Gergen and Gergen 1988, people don't just want to live meaningful lives, they want to control the script others use to describe their lives. Bundy wasn't just protecting his image at trial. He was constructing an ideal version of himself, while every piece of evidence screamed otherwise. He wasn't fighting for truth, he was fighting for the right to direct his own myth. Narcissistic personality traits aren't just a little overconfident. According to the DSM-5 Diagnostic Manual, a person with narcissistic traits often shows for key characteristics. 1. Obsession with controlling personal image, not the real self, but the filtered version others are allowed to see. 2. A deep lack of genuine empathy. They can mimic emotion, but they don't actually feel it. 3. A craving for admiration. Compliments are like oxygen, no praise feels suffocating. And 4. Intense reaction when their power or reputation feels threatened. With Ted Bundy, each of those signs appeared as clearly as stage lights. He never showed remorse. He never admitted to any wrongdoing. And every time he appeared, what he cared about most was, do people still see me as intelligent? Am I still attractive enough for them to talk about me? That wasn't just arrogance, it was a survival mechanism of a distorted ego. You tell them they're wrong, they're not sad. They're offended that you dare think they're ordinary. In a study by Campbell, Reeder, and Sedekidze 2000, individuals with narcissistic traits tend to get caught up in the need to constantly validate their self-image and construct highly complex image defense systems to preserve a sense of superiority. So for Bundy, the courtroom wasn't a place to face guilt. It was a stage for him to perform a shameless self-narrative. Some people are terrified of being seen in failure. They stay quiet, they avoid the spotlight. But Ted Bundy, he didn't avoid the spotlight. He ran toward it, like an actor who knows the final act is about to begin. A study by Robert Emmons 1987 found, people with narcissistic tendencies are highly skilled at managing impressions. They know when to smile, when to pause, when to say something seemingly sincere. Not because they feel it, but because they know it works. They don't need to be good people, they just need to look like they are. And Bundy is the textbook example. He didn't fight the law with evidence. He fought public perception with expressions. An intelligent, confident, articulate man, smiling at just the right moment. And most importantly, he knew exactly when to act like he wasn't acting. In another study by Twenge and Campbell 2009, people with narcissistic traits don't fear public failure, they only fear failing without applause. They don't need victory, they need an audience. Even if they lose, the loss has to have flair, the loss has to fit the narrative. And that's Bundy. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't deny responsibility. He built a persona, like a media production. He wasn't afraid of being seen. He was afraid of being seen in the wrong light. The one he didn't choose to shine on himself. Throughout the entire trial, Ted Bundy never once screamed, "I'm innocent." No tears, no dramatic finger-pointing, not a single show of pain in the classic victim of the system style. Instead, he calmly said, "I understand the law, I'm logical. I'm charming, I'm invisible inside your minds." It's not that he wasn't afraid of the outcome. It's that the outcome didn't matter as much as how his story would be told. He knew no matter what the court decided, people would remember him if he was memorable enough. So he didn't play the role of the defendant. He directed the entire trial like it was a TV drama, where he was the perfect anti-hero, smart, mysterious, charming, and fearless. In social psychology, this behavior is called self-mythologizing. The process of someone actively building their own legend to escape the feeling of being average or out of control. According to McAdams and Adler 2010, people with elevated levels of ego-related personality traits often construct grand narratives about themselves to control how they're remembered even in disaster. And that's what Bundy really wanted, not judgment, but an audience. An audience big enough to make him feel like he still existed. An audience curious enough to wonder what he'd say next. An audience easy enough to manipulate into believing his edited version of the story. Like a self-directed Netflix series, but the audience wasn't just the public. It included the people who suffered because of him, the ones judging him, and us, the people still talking about him today. We've talked about Ted Bundy this whole episode. About how he manipulated, managed his image, twisted the spotlight. But here's the bigger question. Why can't we look away? A person who committed something so extreme, yet had millions watching his trial like it was the season finale. He had fans writing letters, books, podcasts, documentaries. Even people saying, if he were normal, I'd still fall for him. Weird, right? Psychology actually has an answer, according to Paulhus and Williams 2002. A cluster of traits called the dark triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, tends to spark attention and emotional intrigue, especially in media-driven spaces. People with this triad often show inflated confidence, communicate with high charisma, manipulate emotions with ease, and most notably, make you feel like they know something you don't. And our brain, sadly, isn't very good at telling the difference between attractive and safe. The more unpredictable someone is, the more dangerous, the more deliberately cold, the more our brain wants to decode them. Because mystery plus charisma creates a psychological formula that's almost impossible to resist. And Bundy exploited that to the fullest. He didn't just give off "I'm smart" energy, he planted a question in people's minds. Could I be the one who gets him to confess, to soften, to be real? That's a game Bundy never lost because people kept thinking they could change him. We're not drawn to what he did. We're drawn to the way he made us think he could be good, if only he met the right person. So after all the analysis, after all the mind games, glances, and calculated charm Bundy displayed, what do we actually learn? Insight number 1, people with narcissistic traits don't let the story end unless they're the one writing the ending. A tragic ending, they'll rewrite it into a grand finale. A bad ending, they'll redo it at all costs. An ending without spotlight, unacceptable. As long as there's an audience, the show goes on. Insight number 2, they can walk onto the stage in handcuffs. But if there's still a light shining on their face, they still feel powerful. Because for them, the most important thing isn't being believed to be right, it's being seen as exceptional. You think they're arguing facts, they're not. They're rewriting the script, so they're still the main character in the end. The misunderstood works, the tragic anti-hero even better. Just as long as someone's still watching them. Because some people, if they're not in the center of the frame, they'll smash the camera altogether. We saw Bundy walk into court like he was stepping onto a stage, defending himself, curating his own image, and fully convinced he was smarter than the system. But you know what? In psychology, there's a phenomenon scarier than the illusion of fame. It's the illusion of your own competence. A little intelligence can help you pass a test, but blind confidence in your intelligence can send you straight off a cliff. And Ted Bundy is the perfect case study. In episode 4, we'll expose how someone can collapse under the weight of the very confidence they thought was a weapon, and the Dunning-Kruger effect, when you know just enough to think you know it all, but not enough to realize you're dangerously naive. If you've ever thought, "I'd never make a mistake like that," episode 4 will make you want to recheck your own confidence levels. Follow so you don't miss it, because sometimes the thing that makes you fall isn't a push. It's the unchecked confidence you didn't even know was leading you there.